Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Insurance Town. I'm the Mayor Heath Shearon and the host of this podcast, and I am pumped you're hanging out because I've got a new friend coming on here in just a few minutes, Valerie Bowden, and I can't wait to dig in because, we've heard a lot about offshore, onshore. We've heard of virtual assistants, virtual employees, virtual all the above, and this could be totally different and coming from a different perspective, and so I can't wait for us to dig into this together. Guys, this episode will be sponsored as usual by my good friends over at Smart Choice, the fastest growing agency network, hands down. They have 10,000 agencies and 11 billion in written premium, so it's no wonder that they're the fastest growing. And they do commercial, they do personal, they do E&S, they work with tech vendors. They got it all. You name it, they can help you to develop niches. They can help you get into some hard to place business or find standard carriers, whether you need one market or a gazillion. Check out smartchoiceagents.com. Also, my friends over at Canopy Connect, they're more than just a one-click solution nowadays. They are a huge value for your agency with intake forms, with the intake form platform. They help you get your business written quicker and help you get to the top of the stack with your underwriters. They can help you with loss runs, with driver lists, you name it. Go to usecanopy.com/Heath and check it out. Next week, you'll get to hear the webinar that we're recording for Canopy Connect. I can't wait for you to check that out on intake platforms. Guys, there's so much I could say right now, but I don't want to keep you any longer because I know you want to hear this conversation as much as I do. So I'm going to let her in the room, and we're going to talk to Valerie Bowden. Valerie Bowden, what's going on, sis?
Hey, Heath. Thank you for having me here.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I'm excited. It was meant to be.
It was definitely meant to be. And I'm really excited about it. If we just talked for a few minutes off air and hearing some of your story, I just I'm gonna have to record and just catch up with you on live air. So, Ethiopia. So, ladies and gentlemen, this woman lived in Ethiopia and now she's in Pittsburgh. But you told me that you backpacked from Cape to Cairo in a tent and all of those things. I was taking notes over here. What did that journey teach you? How did that happen? And what did that teach you? That's a lot of time in a tent, first of all. 25 years old, and you met your husband. I mean, tell me about that a little bit before we get into the actual content of the show. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, it was amazing. I had graduated from grad school. I was in Florida, graduated. I worked a year. And then I was thinking, I really want to visit Africa. I was that was on my bucket list. And I thought, now is a good time to do it. I'm still young. Let's just go for it. So I booked a one-way ticket to Cape Town, and I had my backpack and my tent. I've never backpacked before. I have no survival skills, right? And I started traveling and I started traveling, and I just started having the best time ever. And before I knew it, I went through 13 African countries. I did the Cape to Cairo backpacking route. So if you're looking at the map of Africa, it was the whole length of the continent by myself. And it was amazing. I loved it. I have no scary stories. I just have amazing stories about all of the nice people I met. Every African country is so different from its neighbor. So I was just constantly seeing different cultures and all the unique things. And I loved it.
Okay. So a lot of people, when you hear, and even talking to my kids, I've got, teenagers that, we've talked about with them they backpack through Europe, or they'll backpack through some other, Australia or what, I don't know, wherever, but you picked Africa. Why Africa?
Well, I had, right after I graduated from university, my first 4 years in school, I had done 3 months volunteering in Ethiopia before my backpacking trip. And that was when I was okay, I'm the typical American girl. I go to Ethiopia to volunteer. I get there, the volunteering organization I was with was illegally operating, and it was backed by celebrities. But it was one of those horror stories. You get there and you realize I'm not needed as a volunteer. This is not doing any good. This might be doing
Yeah.
harm to the community. Like just a really rude awakening. But I was like, the country Ethiopia is amazing. Like it's the country that invented coffee, really good food. Like I loved Ethiopia. And so that's why I went back to the US, went to grad school, and I was like, I can't stop thinking about Ethiopia. I want to see the rest of Africa, but I'm not going to volunteer this time.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go. I'm going to travel. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to see what the countries are actually really like.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. I'm already into it. So before we get too deep, like take a walk down memory lane with me. Let's go through your story a little bit. We've already got to 25, but like what led you to where you are now, running Cradle and all those things? Tell me how you got to this point from grad school to here, or even further back if you need to.
No, that makes sense. Okay, great question. So after I did my backpacking trip, I'm like, you know what? I can't go back to like a normal 9 to 5. Like after you just spent 7 months gorilla trekking, rafting the Nile, I fed a hyena raw meat out of my mouth, right? Like I mean, after doing that for 7 months, yes, a wild hyena, by the way. So after that, I was like, I can't go back to America right now. Like I'm from the Midwest. So I called my parents and I'm like, I'm just going to hang out in Ethiopia for 6 more months. Like, and then I promise you, I'm going to come home after that. Just 6 more months. And then I kept renewing my visa. And then finally, after 8 years, I came home with a husband and like a baby. And I finally moved back to America 3 years ago. But yeah, I spent like 8 years in Ethiopia after my trip, and I loved it.
Oh my gosh, that is incredible. So how did you decide to start a business based in Ethiopia here in the States? And what brought that along, and what did you see in either the business world or in Ethiopia? What made you come to Cradle?
Right. So my background was always in social work. That's what I went to school for. And then because my first volunteering experience in Ethiopia, and then just seeing other nonprofits on the continent, like when I was traveling, when I was living there, there's some amazing ones. But the ones I were seeing were not those. They were like the ones that they just weren't doing a great job. You go to visit them, they're not doing good. And I just wanted nothing to do with the nonprofit world after I saw what I saw. And so I thought, what's really needed is just great jobs. That's what gets people out of poverty in the first place. That's what I'm passionate about. So I'm going to go into the business world because that's how I can create jobs. And so I got a job when I was in Ethiopia at a call center. And so we had like US companies, like Fortune 500 companies building call center teams with us. And at first I was like, this is amazing. Like I'm creating jobs overnight. Americans are so happy with the quality coming out of the continent. Because you think about the Philippines, you think about Latin America, but you don't think about Africa when it comes to offshore teams. So at first I loved it. And then after being there for a few years, I realized, okay, the Ethiopians are getting paid 50 cents an hour. They're commuting 2 to 3 hours a day to get to the call center. These big companies don't care about them. They're not treating them right. So actually, this is not exactly what I want to do. And so my husband and I, we moved back to the US, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to start my own company, an outsourcing company. We're only going to hire in Africa because it's the coolest continent. And that's also aligns with my social impact. We're going to pay them better. We're going to let them work from home. We're going to care about them, know them personally, and we're going to plug them into small and medium businesses who actually need the most support. And that's what I've been doing for the past 3 years. And that's kind of how I got here.
That is unreal. And so first question I would ask is just like when you hear other VA companies, like you said, Philippines, Latin company or countries, there's a little bit of a language barrier sometimes there. Mm-hmm. Do you find similar challenges with African countries and hiring from there, or are they very, well spoken in English and things of that nature?
I think that the accent out of Ethiopia is amazing. They sound so American, very like westernized, for better or for worse. And so that's like what a lot of our, clients say is like they want someone with a good accent. And I think the problem with the Philippines is that it's getting overly saturated. So it's getting really hard to find reps who have good accents because they're going to more and more rural areas to train people and bring them in. Where if you hire from like the African continent, such a big continent that there's so many amazing English speakers who start learning English in kindergarten. So by the time they work for you, they sound just like any other team member.
Yeah. And so regardless of what country, whether it's, Philippines or Africa or any Latin country, like what globally, what do you think is the biggest like challenge or myth that you think US businesses see in hiring globally? Like, what are some of those challenges? I've seen a lot of them myself, but I'd love to hear from you, someone who's a little bit outside of the insurance space, but still working in that remote work. Like, what is some of those myths that you see that you can bust really quick?
I don't think most Americans know that you can hire just as good of team members offshore as you can in the US. I think we think like, oh, I need a really good sales rep. I really need a good VA. I need to hire someone locally. But there are people overseas, wherever they're located, who have the talent, they have the experience, they have the work ethic, and they just have no other opportunities. So when you plug them into a US company, you're paying them in USD, you're paying them well, like they do such a great job. So I think like the lesson is don't underestimate what offshore team members can do for you. No matter where they're located, they can be just as part of your team and do just as much as like internally they like an American can.
With, your mission of changing the way people are, treat, offshore workers, and I've talked about this on my own show in working with people as well of you have to treat them like an employee in the US. You have to treat them like they're sitting right next to you or in the cubicle next to you or the office next to you, whatever it might be. So that's one of the things I've always believed in. But coming from your perspective on that and the way you want to change that, like you mentioned 50 cents an hour and they weren't treating them as well. What are some other things that you believe passionately about that makes Cradle different from the thousands of other VA companies in the world?
Yeah. I mean, specifically, I have found account management to be the biggest support for like our clients. Like there is sometimes a gap between different cultures. So if you could have an account manager that helps you kind of, that makes like that advocates for both sides, I think that is super helpful. But kind of going back to what you're saying, the people who are getting paid 50 cents an hour, those big companies who are paying that, it's because there's usually a lot of middlemen. And I think that's something most people don't know is like you're going through an outsourcing company. They might be using another outsourcing company on the ground. And so by the time you get to those people who are actually doing the work, they're not getting paid enough. And you might not know that. You might be paying a fair rate, but the people who are doing the work aren't getting all of that or a good portion of that. So I think it really matters which company you choose as well, because that's just like a little dirty secret in the industry.
And so, being on Insurance Town, obviously my listeners are going to be in the insurance space. And, for a company like Cradle that works with very, different companies, different industries, different places, like how do you bring someone from Cradle into whatever that, whether it's on the agency side or a carrier or something in insurance, how do you get them up to speed quickly enough or train them on those things when there's VA companies that are designed for insurance only? What do you guys do to bring them in so someone could right out of the box say, I've got a Cradle employee that's ready to rock?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it comes down to recruitment. Like you have to have great people. So we do lots of assessments. We know them really well. And then we really deflect to the client's onboarding and training. And so I think that's a good tip for like, if you're ever hiring offshore anywhere in the world, you really want to have a proper onboarding and training schedule for them. And I think that's a big mistake clients make is that they just like, by day 2, they're expecting perfection. And really like, it's great if you can walk them through your company, walk them through yourself, who is your, ICP, what makes your company unique, spend a couple weeks having them meet different team members, do daily stand-ups with them. And like you mentioned earlier, as long as you treat them like any other team member, like any other person you have in a cubicle beside you, like then that's when they will act like that.
Yeah. When you talk through that, is there an example, whether it's in the insurance space or not? I know you have some clients in insurance, but could you share maybe a success story or something that might be able to connect the dots a little bit with Cradle in my area of, listeners, like an example, maybe how that worked. Maybe they were patient and waited a few weeks, or maybe they did this or that to help.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a great client named Brian who's in the insurance world, and he wanted a marketing assistant. And so she was helping him fix his LinkedIn, reach out, put him on a guest podcast, like to really like expand his presence. And he did such a great job with like being patient, telling her about the business, doing calls with her, doing calls with our team. And then after a month or two, he like increased her hours. Now she's doing admin work. Now he's like, can she call my clients? Can she do this? And so some of it's like start off small, build that relationship. And then you can expand when you start to see like what their different skills are or what else you think they can do to help support you and your company.
I love that. As you go through the different things that like started off in marketing, then got into admin and this and that and the other, is there any one particular area or, one or two that you feel like the African or the Ethiopian worker can do just right out of the box? Like this is something they do really, really well, whether it's communication or social media or admin tasks, whatever it might be. Is there any one thing it's like, oh man, I'm going to Cradle because of they have this skill set?
Yeah. I mean, I think all of our team members have different roles and experiences, but I love sales. I feel like that's like, for me, sales is my favorite role to place. We do, like, for example, we do a lot of cold calling. And I think one of the biggest mistakes we see in the US is that like either insurance agents or company leaders are doing the cold calling themselves, and cold calling such like a volume game. It can be really challenging. So like it should not be something that an American team member is doing whatsoever. But if you can have like an offshore appointment setter or cold caller do the calls for you, and then whenever they get a warm lead, they can either live transfer it to you, they can set up an appointment for you. I feel like that's like such a win-win in terms of just like increasing your time, getting your sales calendar booked. It just makes sense.
And that's awesome that you say that, because I hear a lot of times people say, I don't want them forward facing. I don't want them facing my clients because it may be accent, or maybe it's this, or they don't have an insurance license, or they don't have this.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're saying completely combats that in a positive way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like they are exactly who you want to be, that front line first, the first touch point, because they're friendly. They should sound like they're calling from America. They should have that accent. And again, if you train them and onboard them, they'll represent you properly. And I think the tip is like, whenever you're hiring someone offshore, make sure you like interview them and meet them. Like, don't just go with who the outsourcing agency sends your way. You want to meet them and pick who you think is going to resonate most with your talent. Do you want someone who's more outgoing? Do you want someone who's a little bit softer on the phone? Like you can pick, do you need a guy? Would a woman do better? Like you can really pick that, and then you'll feel a lot more comfortable when they're calling.
Yeah. I would love to hear, like, do you see in those type of roles like that any one particular gender does better, or any particular age group, or any particular like, I don't know if like area of Africa does better than others, because you've got them from all over. Is there anything like that? Because again, I hear the opposite, like I don't want them calling, but I think you're onto something there.
Well, I do think it does matter per industry. We have some industries that like it is better to have a female. Like we have a client who does Brazilian waxing. So you want a woman on the phone doing those calls, right?
Right.
It's going to be awesome, right? And then we have other, we do a lot in real estate as well. And a lot of those industries are like a really aggressive sales bro, for better or for worse, is what's going to do better, because they have big egos. They need someone who has that big, a little bit more of that assertive personality. So I think it just depends like what kind of, what you're doing in the insurance world and who you think would better resonate. And then just to also add, like, I think a lot of reason why they've had a bad experience with someone calling them is because often these cold callers are told, stick to the script. You have to use exactly these words. Don't deviate. And that's why they sound like robots. And we had a client who was like, you have to use exactly this script. And I remember thinking, there's a word in there that I have trouble saying as a native American English speaker. So why are you making them do that? So instead, give them like the bones, give them the process, but like let them use their own words and kind of like have the ability to have, more of a personal conversation. And then they won't sound like they're offshore call center reps.
Well, yeah. And another big thing, like, I've trained agents across the country on cold calling, on that, and there's that cold call reluctance. There's those people that are fear of failure or fear of rejection or whatever it might be. Do you find any of that with hiring someone from Africa or Ethiopia, to say, they don't have that we have built in America? Or is it something they just get over it a lot easier? Or where do you find that?
I do think cold calling is one of the hardest jobs in the world. Super, super tough. I'm so proud of anyone who does cold calling.
Right.
I do think there is a different perception of the role. I think in the US, we think of cold calling as like, this is an entry level job and I want to get out of it and become a closer or move up in the sales world.
Right.
Whereas when you're hiring someone offshore, what we like to do is like by the time they've actually, for example, started to work with us, now they're working with a US company making great money. And so this is like the height of their career. Like this is a really, really great job. It's not seen as like an entry level, get me out of here. Like they've worked for years and years and years to get to a place where they can work for a US company and do these calls. And so because of that, they're doing anywhere from like 100 to 400 calls a day. Which again, like I don't envy that job at all, And like, again, that's why they should be doing it, because they can do 100 to 400 calls a day. Whereas probably most American cold callers are going to fight back on that and not want to do that kind of volume.
Yeah. And, one of the things that I've seen, as I creeped and stalked you a little bit, you talk about, how some virtual assistants get that reputation, no matter what the role is, cold caller or not, of being kind of flaky, as you say. Mm-hmm. Like, how would you coach a business or coach someone in overcoming that? Or how do you work with teams in that? And like, I was interested in that when you use that terminology and the way you said that, flaky, you were just flat out about it. You work with them, so you can say it's like, I could talk about my friends, but you can't. But like, you could talk about this from a place of authority and love and passion. And so I'd love to hear, because that is something that's out there. It's a legit thing. So what are your thoughts on that?
I do think virtual assistants get an unfair reputation for being flaky, whether they're in the Philippines, Africa, wherever, Mexico. It's not fair because, first of all, one, they might not be getting paid enough. So if you're not getting paid enough, you are going to move to the next job as quickly as possible. And so you do need to work with a good agency. Two, I think some of it does come to how well are you integrating them? Like, are you doing the daily stand-up? Do you know who they are? Are you treating them like that they're part of your company? I've seen some clients, not use great language around them. Like they're not kind to them. So like, you know what I mean? Like you do need to treat them like a team member.
100%.
And third, I think it just comes down to make sure you have really smart SOPs. And when you do train them, you're recording all of those trainings so that if you do have to put a new virtual assistant in, you're not starting from the very beginning. And just as an example, we had a virtual assistant who we love, and her aunt had to get cancer treatment outside of Ethiopia. Like they don't have enough hospitals, they don't have enough healthcare coverage, so they had to go to Asia to get covered. So overnight, she told us on Friday, Monday she had to get on the airplane, right? And that was something like she loved the client loved her, but obviously this is like a matter of life or death for her family member. But because she had those SOPs, because the client had recorded all of her training sessions, we were able to get a VA in who trained over the weekend, started Monday, and it was like totally seamless. So it's like whoever you hire in general, you want to have those SOPs and all of that documented so that if you have to replace someone, it's not as hard.
Yeah, and so when it comes to those SOPs, should they be built specifically for VAs separate from the organization's SOPs, or add in certain language for that, or it should be all the same SOPs that somebody in the US has that they might have?
Same SOP, whatever the role is, like whatever you want them to do. You can do it before they start. Like you can write down like, this is exactly what I want you to do. Here's a Loom video, or here's an example. I know when I hired my first assistant, I was way too busy to do that. So I just had her shadow me. And then we did like Zoom for like 40 hours a week for like 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. And then she wrote her own SOPs. I reviewed them, tweaked them. And that was how we created the SOPs. So you can do it either way. But whatever they're doing on a day-to-day, if they weren't there, would somebody be able to step in and be able to keep the work going seamlessly? That's what you're going for.
Yeah, I think you bring up something that could translate not just from virtual, but also in US environment, hiring people in your backyard. Mm-hmm. The whole job shadowing thing, I think that's a brilliant move. I think, I could hire someone across the street, someone in, Little Rock to come work for me. And I think that's still a move that would be beneficial to have someone sit behind me and watch me where I click, what I do, who I talk to, how I do that. Is that something that you have found a lot of success in? And would you suggest that, whether you're in insurance space, real estate, or Brazilian waxing, just something like that, to do the same thing, job shadowing?
I love that. Like you're right. For any role, job shadowing is where it's at. And you can do that on Zoom. I mean, you can do it virtually just as well as you can in person. And especially if you're looking for, let's say, a virtual assistant or a cold caller, you really want them to reflect how you do things, your language. And I love that because you're spending more time with them. The problem with some SOPs is somebody will just do a Loom video and be like, now you know what to do. And it's like, wait a minute, there might be some more questions, right? So the more they know you and how you think, the better they can have those critical thinking skills to do the work when other things come up.
Well, then I also think flipping that. What if agency owner or business owner were to flip that and job shadow some employees in the office, whether they're in the office or a virtual assistant, to say, okay, why? Because maybe they're far removed from it. Maybe it's been a while since they've been in that role or been there because they're working on the business, not in it. Well, what do you think about that? And I think that would be a smart move as well for maybe Valerie or Heath to shadow their employees and watch what they're doing and ask questions.
Yeah, 100%. Shadow them to see how they're doing it, because you might know another tip, or you might be like, wait, why is this taking you so long? Why is a batch texting taking so long? Oh, because you're not batching. You're sending all these text messages individually. That actually happened to one of our clients. We're like, why is this taking so long? And they didn't know the batch text feature, right? So it was because they were shadowing them like you suggested, it was an easy adjustment. So I think that's great.
I think you could also find some things that they're doing all my employees should be doing this because you found the hack or the shortcut or the whatever.
100%. I mean, anybody who's filling into that assistant role is probably, they might be a younger person who might be a little bit more tech savvy. They might be using AI tools you didn't even know about. So yeah, why not see what you can learn from them as well?
Yeah, and you brought up the two biggest letters in insurance right now and in the world right now, AI. Yeah. So you've opened that can now. I'm an AI guy. I would love to know, because that's a thing that I hear a lot too, of people saying, with the whole invention of AI, it's going to, diminish the virtual assistants, or it's going to, why hire a VA when I can just have ChatGPT do all my work, or why do this when I've got AI now? Personally, and I could be wrong, I don't necessarily see AI replacing VAs or replacing people in general. I think it will replace people that don't use AI, but I do think that there could be some synergy there. Do you find Cradle as maybe being threatened by AI or the opposite?
No, I think it's one of the best things that's ever happened to offshore team members for a few reasons. I think, like you're saying, people think, oh, it's either outsourcing or a virtual assistant. But I think the future of what a company is going to look like in America is you're going to use some AI, you're going to use some offshore team members, and you're going to have some American-based team members. And it's going to be a mix of those three that make you really competitive. So no, I think a virtual assistant is better off because these AI tools, one, help them know the nuance of an industry better than ever before. So for example, we have a virtual assistant who does LinkedIn commenting for our client who's a lawyer in Texas. So middle-aged lawyer, and he has a 21-year-old girl in Ethiopia writing comments that sound exactly like him because she can use ChatGPT to mimic his
brilliant.
Voice, right? So she's so much better at her job because of that. Or let's say you're sending out some cold emails. AI is going to let you do that faster with more volume, but someone has to help manage those replies and put a little bit of a human touch on them. And so again, it's give your offshore team members AI tools, and that's when the magic happens.
And so do you offer any kind of training as far as that goes with AI with some of the Cradle people, or do you encourage people to do that?
Yeah, well, a lot of our there's like the cool thing about hiring from Africa is there's so many initiatives to like train. And so we have a lot of virtual assistants who have already been trained on this amazing like AI course. So they know all the top AI tools already, like that they've already gone through that training. And then we hire them once they pass those assessments. So they could definitely teach you like what they learned in those. And then yeah, internally my team is all young. They're all like a decade younger than me. They're all using AI for everything. They've redone like a lot of our departments using AI tools now. And so, yeah, we have account managers who help our clients figure out AI and how to use it and how to integrate it with our team members.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm sure them going through some of those courses and whatnot, they probably understand a little bit more on the security side of things and making sure they're using the closed GPDs or they're using security features and all of those things.
Yeah. I think anytime you're doing offshore, like compliance is really important. And so you want your offshore team members to know how to keep your data secure. And most of them know that. Like as a professional virtual assistant, they know like how to do that and what that compliance means.
100%. And so, I can't help but think like when you mentioned something earlier about, one of the team members having, unforeseen circumstances pop up and things like that. When I think of whether it's Latin or Philippines or it's an African, country or whatnot, like or the country of Africa, like I would imagine in my head, they might have challenges with maybe it's, because it's third world country in some areas, some of those places, like whether it's internet connection or Wi-Fi or things of that nature. Like how do you run into any of that? How do you overcome some of that? Or do you only hire and they come into a center that already has all that? How do you,
Yeah.
I don't even,
Great
there's
question.
not a question there. It's an interest of mine. I don't know.
Yeah.
kind of help me out here. Like, yeah.
I get what you're saying. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's like probably one of the things that maybe has come positively out of the pandemic is that like all of these, like the need for good Wi-Fi, the need to work remotely has become popular everywhere. And so African countries have like also, been on that wave long. And so all of our team members have internet, they have backup internet, they have a power bank if needed. And they make fun of me because I'm based in Pittsburgh, which has so many infrastructure issues that like if someone's on a call and someone gets frozen, it's always me. And they're always like, oh, like our internet in Ethiopia is better than Val's.
That's hilarious.
But I think another thing that comes up is time zone. And so that's one thing I have found to be really important. Like whoever you hire, again, from whatever country, region, continent, whatever, I would make them work your US time zone. I think that's like one of the challenges we've seen with VAs is if they're working different hours and you need them to make a change and then you have to wait till the next day when they log in, it's going to take forever. And so as a default, all of our team members work 9 to 5 EST, but they can work Pacific Coast if needed. But whoever you hire, make them align with your time zone because like their job is to make your life easier. And so that means you need them around when you're working.
Love that. And I think you're right on that. I think it makes a big difference because I have worked with companies that had VAs that didn't do that. And so it'd be like, well, it's 9:30 a.m. and they're logging off for the day and like I can't get them again till tomorrow or it's like
things stretch out. It's frustrating. I know like at least for Africa, like most of our team members they're clocking in at like 4 p.m. and then they work till midnight if they're working like full-time hours and they're like I'm 22. Like I would be up to midnight anyways. Like now I get paid. Like this is great.
Yes. That's funny that you say that because I never know because I've never been to Africa, so I don't know. The country of Africa, wherever you've been all over that country. Like, are they pretty well versed in American culture? Do they have American culture? Like they watch a lot of whether it's trashy TV or they know the soap operas, they know the reality or the music. I mean, are they pretty well versed in American culture to have those cold call conversations or to be able to do some of service tasks or whatever it might be?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so it's a really big continent, and then there's 54 different countries, and they're all so different, right? So I obviously can't speak for everyone, but I would say the team members that we hire or the team members who are wanting to work for a U.S. company, they're very like internationally focused, and so like, yeah, they do watch the trashy shows. Like if you ask them, like Love Island is what they always say. Like they're all on TikTok. I actually had never watched Friends until I moved to Ethiopia. And
Oh,
then, like,
wow.
yeah, and then everybody just binges Friends, and so like that's when I first watched it. But yeah, they're so up to date on pop culture. Again, for better or for worse. I don't know if that's a good thing. But yeah, they anyone who
Yeah.
wants to do outsourcing, they're up to date on that. And if you ask them, like we've gotten in fierce fights about who's better, like Michael Jordan or LeBron James. Like we've gotten into like fights about this subject.
That's awesome.
So yeah, they're fun.
Yeah, sounds like it. That's awesome. Okay, so again, bringing it down to my audience and insurance. What are again? Insurance Town, we're very well versed and familiar with, offshore and with, hiring virtual assistants or virtual employees or whatnot. What is some advice or tips or some things right now in this post-COVID, AI boom, all those kind of things? What are some ideas, tips, trades, just some bottom shelf type things that you could tell people that maybe they haven't heard before, or maybe they could dig in a little bit on to say, okay, I can make this work, or maybe I should rethink this, or maybe I bring on more, whatever it might be. You brought up a good strategy earlier with the sales, but I didn't know if you had anything else, this being your area of expertise.
I love the book Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. And so like if you haven't ever done or haven't done a time audit recently, I would honestly audit your time and then record like what am I doing every 15 minutes for the next week or two. Because out of that, I think you're going to say like, oh my goodness, like I don't have time to do everything. Or like, I remember thinking I did that and I realized my inbox was taking me 12 hours a week. And that's when I was like, I need to hire an assistant. By the way, when I hired my first assistant to help me, I tripled my business in 3 months. And that was like the power of delegating. Right. So I would say that's like the first thing is know where your time's going and then make a list of everything you shouldn't be doing. And that becomes like the job description for hiring a virtual assistant. So start there. Be really clear about what you want as well. Like sometimes we have clients and they are asking for like 12 different things. Like you can't get a unicorn at like $8 an hour. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so narrow it down, even if it means hiring 2 different people for part-time hours, but like be very specific about what you want. I love doing like a 90-day KPI because that just helps everyone be really aligned with like, this is what I'm expecting. The first week or two, like you're in training, you're shadowing me virtually for like 40 hours a week, right? After that, these are what I'm expecting. And by the end of the 90 days, I am expecting you to be like fully up and running and owning these tasks. And so just like map it out what you want every week, every month. And then within 3 months, they should be fully like rocking and rolling for you. So those are a few tips, I think, just to get going with whatever role you end up hiring.
Yeah, so many things I want to unpack on that. But one of the things, I don't even know where to begin on that because I have a lot of things I want to get to. But like, okay, you just brought up, the being clear about what you want for them to do. One of the things that I hear a lot of people say about hiring offshore is they could get done a full day's work in a matter of like half a day, so I'm paying this person or I'm got this full-time person that's like coming to me and saying, okay, I'm done with this. What's next? What's next? Because they can work so much quicker and because they do have certain things. How do you talk to, let's say, insurance agency owners or producers in that to say, how do you combat that? How do you overcome that challenge of like, damn, they're that good. They got done quicker than I thought.
Yeah. So like at least for me, like my assistant knows like these are the things you do every single day that always need to be done. And then I have a laundry list of like when you're not doing that, you're taking on this next project and then this next project. So like that way my team member is always busy and I don't have to manage as much because they already know exactly what they should be doing. And there's just always some things that they can do. Like for the insurance agent, Brian, I mentioned, like if she has spare time, she's doing more guest podcast outreaching. She's booking him for keynotes.
Okay.
She's helping him with LinkedIn. So there are some things that like you can just go down that rabbit hole. I don't know if you use My Most Trusted. That's like our new fun thing to help get like warm intros set up. But like they can go to anyone who has My Most Trusted set up, figure out who would be a good client, and then ask for recommendations or warm intro messages. So yeah, there's like a whole bunch of things that you can do to keep them busy.
Okay, that's awesome. I also noticed, you've mentioned several different things. So you could bring someone in, like you said, as sales. You could do, someone could do just, the day-to-day task, like an assistant or a marketing person or whatnot. And then you've mentioned executive assistant. What other do you see any other outside of those three, or any other things like that they could be doing, or a combination of any other things? Like, I think a lot of people bring in someone for one role and they realize, oh, they should be doing another. What?
I do.
Go ahead.
I do think that happens. Like sometimes, like anywhere, you might pivot people, right? Like once you get to know them, you might pivot them, and that's kind of actually a great thing because you're putting people where their strengths are. But it's really anything you can like train or delegate on, or like that first tier, especially is like a really easy fill for an offshore team member. So when it comes to sales, they can do cold calling for you. They can call businesses and see if they need your help with like new insurance. They can do lead generation. Who is your ideal client? They can go out and find them and get their contact information. They could write those first cold emails instead of using an AI tool where it's like so automated and cold and AI wrote it. They could go down the rabbit hole and really do some research to craft like a really personal message using ChatGPT, but it's still personal. When it comes to, they can do inbound too. So like, let's say you have a really good lead magnet and you can put a phone number on there. And when people download it and you get their phone number, they can call within like 2 minutes of someone downloading that and set an appointment on your calendar or offer to help in some way. When it comes to admin, again, anything that like allows you to have more time to do revenue generating activity. So anything you can delegate, inbox, calendar management, research, light bookkeeping, like anything you can do to train them so you have your time back. Marketing, again, LinkedIn for me, like 11% of our clients come from my LinkedIn because like I just love LinkedIn and it's a great tool. And if you're not getting clients from LinkedIn, I think you're not doing it right. And so hire someone who can help you with your LinkedIn, help you post, add the 100 connections, send out those messages, comment on your behalf, keep leads warm. There's just so many things that they can do. It's amazing.
And the other thing I wanted to unpack was you brought up the other statement of, I put it in my words of people can get impatient and they expect them just to open a box and be able to put them to work immediately. Whereas I don't understand. Like if I were to hire someone again here in Little Rock to come work for me, I wouldn't expect them just to start day one ready to go. But yet they think that they should be able to do that with an offshore. Like most people, like when I started, any job that I've started, they gave me either 2 weeks of training or a month of training or 90 days of this.
Yeah.
Like, why do you think that is that people just expect people right out of the box just to be able to be a superhero?
I don't know, but I see that too. You're right. Like, if you were to have someone in the office, like you would have to train them and you would take time. And then when it goes offshore, where you would actually think you need actually a little bit more training, people expect them to be up and running faster. But here's a good example. So we've had clients who are like, here's your script, here's your list, go cold call on day one. Okay. And like our team members are like, wait, what's the company called again? And like, what do you guys do? Like they know nothing, right? They're just thrown in and told to do the script, right? So it's not effective. And then we had another client named Josh and he hired 3 people from us. He spent an hour every single day with them, like an hour every day training them. And then after 6 weeks, they had generated $100,000 in new revenue from just cold calling for him.
Wow.
But he spent an hour a day with them, right? So it's like, if you invest the time and you get to know them, whatever role, an offshore team member is going to do amazing for you. But you're right. Like you have to give them some time and training and attention.
Yeah. I get so frustrated with that when people are like, I hired a VA and 3 weeks later I had to let them go because they weren't meeting my expectations. Like your expectations were a little strong, bro. I mean, like, how do you expect someone I don't know. It's not like stick batteries in it and just expect it to go. Like it's not I don't know. I wonder. I also wonder, I don't know, it's a dumb question probably, but the history behind the name virtual assistant. I think people think virtual and they think robot. They think, a mechanical something or other. Like, is it virtual just because like their whole pandemic and virtual and like people being, is that where it came from?
That's a good question. I know like my marketing team is like, Val, we have to stop saying virtual assistant because they're like, it's almost demeaning to like what they're doing. Like, because everything is virtual these days, right? So it should just be like another name, administrative assistant, maybe executive assistant.
Yeah.
But you're right. VA sounds like such a low job considering like we have VAs who are doing so much for the company. We had a VA after 3 years. She became the operations manager over like team
Yeah.
members in the UK. Like, right? Like, right. So it's, yeah, virtual, I guess it's old school. We need to come up with a new name to better name all the amazing work that they're doing.
Yeah, I would agree. So we'll have to noodle on that one. So I love that. So, there's so many other things that I know we're coming up on time. So, we'll have to, take some of this off air, but, one of the things I would love to know from you, if, being time in Africa, time here, first of all, do you foresee yourself ever moving back and spending time in Ethiopia again or any other country in Africa?
I could definitely see it because my husband's Ethiopian. Like we were just there 3 weeks ago visiting
Yeah.
family. Ethiopia is a great place to live. I could see potentially moving back to the continent eventually. I want to do my same trip again, but the other side. So I did more like the eastern side of the continent, but I was thinking maybe I do South Africa to Morocco this time and hit more of the West African countries. Maybe when my kids are older. But yeah, I mean, if you've ever been to the continent, you'll want to go again because you'll realize how fun and amazing it is once you travel there.
That's awesome. So I saw somewhere where you had like 136,000 people or whatever on a blog that you wrote about your backpacking. Like, what do you think was, something that like drew people to that? Or like, why do you think people were so interested in that?
Yeah. I think as an American, we only hear like the negative things about the continent. And there's a lot of reasons for that, right? Like charities only say the negative thing because if they said the positive thing, you want to donate money to them. I think the news, the media feeds on those like horror stories. But when you're actually there, you get to see all of the good things that you've never heard about before. And so it becomes like, for me, it was like this delightful experience to see all of the good things. And like, just as a random fact, like the Global Peace Index just came out with the recent 2025 study. And like the majority of African countries are safer than the United States, right? But like, you'll never hear that like on CNN. But when I was there, I was backpacking, like by myself with a tent. And like, I don't know if people could see the video, but like, I do not look like I could hold my own, like no survival skills to do it. Right? Like, and I just had like a wonderful time. Yeah. So
well, you brought up, you brought up safety, you brought up some of those things, but what is some of those other things that you see, especially being married to an Ethiopian, like, what are some of those other things in Africa that have that potential just to highlight Africa as a continent right now? Like, what should people know, like myself, who's never really left America? Like, what should we know about Africa?
First of all, I will plan anybody a trip. Like email me, like I am booking. I'll make you a trip, like an itinerary. I mean, when I first went, I didn't know Ethiopia was the country that invented coffee. So if you like coffees, they have coffee ceremonies and they roast the coffee in front of you. You get 3 small cups. You eat coffee with popcorn. When I met my husband, he thought it was so weird that I ate popcorn with movies. Like he's like, that is weird. Like popcorn is only for coffee. And I was like, you know what I mean? So there's like funny things like that. But like food is really good throughout the continent, very different in each country. Great place to do business from now, right? Like it's definitely the continent that I think will become more important, especially in the future, because it just has the youngest population. And so like, I think the stat is like by 2050, 1 in 4 workers globally will be from Africa.
Wow.
Similar to that. And so it just shows you like the trends are already that we're going to be hiring from the continent. We're already doing more business with the continent. And so my hope is that we do it the right way, in an ethical, conscious way, so that it's sustainable and fair. But yeah, it's a really cool continent.
Yeah. We've had this coffee shop, or this, coffee place franchise, so to speak, pop up in Arkansas. And there's like, I don't know, 30 locations now across, different states now. And I first had their coffee. I was like, this is amazing. Why is this coffee so
Yeah.
good? And I don't like other coffee shops that are very well known. And they're like, it's Ethiopian. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
I didn't know Ethiopia. I mean, I've heard of Colombian coffee and I've heard of this coffee or that coffee. I'd never heard of Ethiopian coffee. And it was so freaking good. And I stop by there all the time now and get coffee.
That's so cool. It's the best coffee. I always say, like, if you like coffee, you'll like hiring from Ethiopia.
There you go. That's awesome. I love that. Okay. So last thing, if there was a billboard that you were given in let's say Times Square, what would the message you would want to put on there, whether it's about Africa, about Cradle, about virtual assistants, about anything that you care about? What would be a message that you would want on a billboard for a month that people in a popular city like that would see?
Well, our slogan is choose Africa. So that's what I would put on the billboard. Choose Africa. Like, for your next hire, choose Africa. For your next cup of coffee, choose Africa, right? Like, for your virtual assistant needs, choose Africa. I don't even care if it's like through us. I don't care if it's through another company. Like, we are really just passionate about creating jobs on the continent. And I do think when you look at the level of skill, education, accent, talent, it is truly like the smartest ROI is to hire from there instead of a traditional outsourcing country where it might be getting oversaturated.
Love that. Choose Africa. Well, I'm hoping that people listening to this will choose Cradle, or at least think about it. Tell me in the last few minutes before we rock out, what is tell me about Cradle. Tell the audience a little bit about Cradle, how they can find you, what you guys are doing. Obviously, your mission is choose Africa, and we've obviously heard a lot about your beliefs on things. But tell me a little bit about Cradle.
Yeah. So I launched Cradle to be a high quality outsourcing option. So we focus on reps who do have that 10 out of 10 accent level, who are reliable, who are trustworthy. And so we love helping insurance agents hire from us for any role that they need. To date, we have over 120 team members throughout the continent.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've built up a team to kind of support what I'm doing. 70% of who we hire is female, which I really love. And I think what most clients like, at least about Cradle, is that every week we also have an account manager who meets with you just to make sure things are smooth. I think the complaint about other outsourcing companies is you get dumped with someone, you're like, I don't know what to do. And I've never had a VA before. Or this list isn't working. The cold callers aren't even getting connected. And so we have team members who meet with you once a week as well to make sure that things are going well. So that's what we're doing.
And how would people find, first of all, the name Cradle? Where did that come from?
Yeah. Okay. So we do spell it a little bit funky. So it's Cradle spelled without the A, Crdle. And it's because Africa is the cradle of humanity. And I didn't want something like Empower Africa or something that had that pity vibe. I really wanted something that was let's highlight, this is the continent, where humanity came from, birthplace of civilization. And we hope that when you're starting to hire, we are the starting point for you to start building teams, offshore teams. And I think that's what we've done so far. I love how clients start with one or two people and they grow to teams of 20 with us. I think that's really cool just to start off small and to keep growing with our clients. And so far we have really cool clients who have come on board. We have, you met Marcus Ogden, ex-NFL players. We have tech companies. We have Harvard psychologists who hire from us. We have hockey stars. We get all kinds of really cool people who work with us. And also just insurance agents as well. And so, yeah, we love working with anyone.
And, before we sign out, you guys have won, I think, multiple times, Outsourcing Impact Award. What has that meant to you and to your company? And, how did that come about?
Yeah, I especially because my background's in social work, I did want to make sure that everything we're doing is fair and ethical, and we're making a good social impact on the world. So we were, we applied, we got the award twice for just, first of all, highlighting Africa as a place to hire from that most people don't know about. And then also because we're paying fairly, we're hiring women, and we have lots of other perks and benefits to make sure our team members are doing well.
Oh, it sounds like you got a baby that needs mama's attention. Oh.
One of the outside of working from home.
No, I get that completely. So again, thank you so much. You need to go be a mama, but I've taken enough of your time. But thank you so much for joining us. And people that want to find you on LinkedIn or go to crdle.com.
Yeah. I live on LinkedIn, message us on Cradle, and we're happy to hop on a discovery call and just chat about what it might look like to hire from Africa.
Perfect. All righty.